So up until this point, we've really handled the bounce a lot of in session work, and I think the one thing that's just notable about the bounce is that now, as we start to work with more session-like work, we have to realize that the bounce has to have room at the front, or it has to at least start somewhere from the beginning. So this one doesn't really have any room in the front, but this one we have to start from the beginning. We can offer it a bunch of room at the end. There's no until we actually go to mastering. There's no real downside other than file size and space to having a little bit longer of a tail. But the big thing is that we have a reverb here, and the reverb is reacting upon the final note that takes place. And so I'm not allowed to cut it off when I say, "Oh, I see that final clip right here. Let's highlight only up until that point to do our bounce." That won't work because it'll sound like this. I'm going to unloop the playback so we can hear what that would sound like. This is what it sounds like if it gets cut off too short. And it begins to be abrupt. It basically chops it off too far, and so and then this one didn't have everybody in it to the end. So definitely, if everybody was really playing it to the end, you'd really hear that be more of a drastic effect, and it just comes out too quick. So a lot of times we just need that little bit of tail to make sure the reverb comes down nicely. But even if we were doing a real mix that was going to go to radio, it still has to hit the mastering phase. So we can leave as much tail as we need to at the tail end of the clip because the mastering engineer is going to be the one that does the finalization on the final components of timing, very artistically trying to figure out how long they really want that tail to feel right. But then, so we're going to highlight, and then we're going to do all of our normal functions. We're going to go to File, and Bounce Mix. One of the other things that we can also point out at this point, too, is it is important in this mix setting, other than figuring out where you're setting it, is really just deciding, what kind of formats you should be using or you would like to use. And so you'll notice that there's a bunch of different offerings here, but we can go to Wave, AIFF, MP3, or this MXF. But the thing is, and we can also go to a movie if we had video in here. The biggest thing is that we want to stay high res, so we really want to stay Wave or AIFF in most cases, and do this add extra MP3. So if we needed one, we could have it. I always find that since they created this option, this has been a fantastic way to roll, just always, because I always get clients that need something shared quickly, and if I make it an MP3, I can literally just send it as a text. They don't care how they get it, just that they get it quickly. So a lot of times I'll just drop it into my messenger directly, or I'll drop it into my notes in my Apple iCloud, and I'll just send it as a text. They understand that it's the low res version or the MP3 version, and all the high res stuff is going to be larger and it'll stay more localized. But it's a better way to do it in that scenario where it's kind of great because in the future, one of the things that I look back, I've been in this 20 years. Looking back, there's a lot of things that I wish I'd done differently. One of those things is make sure that I do a bounce on every session. And I don't mean like when I'm just in the tracking phases. I mean like when I'm finalizing. I have lots of sessions that I was working on, and maybe the client gave up on it, or they walked away and they just never came back or whatever. And it's tough to go back and open old sessions sometimes if you have different plugins or if you have different routing, and then you have to reconstruct all the routing, and it just makes it difficult. So a lot of times, it's great to go and have you have to have your high res bounce when you're really doing it for project work and for things that you really want to use in the future. You have to have the high res bounce, and then do an MP3 so you have that backup, so you always kind of can have that carry with you. So like a lot of the dumb stuff that I'm not really going to keep, but I still want to listen to, I have the old versions, and I just kept their MP3s because they're smaller. I don't have to keep their giant, AIFF or WAV versions. And then, you're bouncing and you're sending it out to where you need to, and that's it.